You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Welcome to Believe in the Broncos podcast, brought to you by Bet Online. Big day for Broncos country. Russell Wilson signs a 5-year extension with the Denver Broncos. Big O, is this a big day for Denver?
Absolutely. Huge day. And the writing has been kind of on the wall. You know, you don't give up what you have to give up in order to get Russell Wilson if you're not going to do a long-term deal with him. And for me, Chris, I'm just happy that the deal came now rather than later, right? Because the longer you wait with these deals, especially at the quarterback position, you know, all it takes is the right type of quarterback to sign for a little bit more. And all of a sudden, if you're the Broncos, you've got to ante it up. Right now, I love this deal because what we saw was Aaron Rodgers signed his deal averaging about a little bit over $50 million a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Then we watched Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson sign their deals, but those deals are right around the $45 million a year range. I was very much afraid that the next quarterback that was going to sign was going to be the big deal, right? And so you're looking at Aaron Rodgers at a little bit over 50. So what was Russell going to get? 52, 53? But I'm happy that the Broncos were able to figure something out, come to a common ground. You know, Russell, it's like, hey, we scratch your back, you scratch our back type of situation. We know Aaron Rodgers, 2 years it took him to get that deal. There was all types of rambling. He wanted to get out of Green Bay, and then they did that deal that just blew everybody away, right, and reset that market. With a guy like Russell Wilson, there's common ground with him and the Broncos. Russell was out there in Seattle, getting beat up, having to run for his life. Seattle never addressing that offensive line. And Russell's getting a little older. So finally the Broncos traded for him. And now it's a situation where we got you out of that situation. We got a team that has young talent around us. We're not just going to give you defensive weapons. Remember, the Broncos, Chris, have spent a lot of draft capital over the last couple of years on offense. So I assumed that was a very appealing factor to Russell signing with the Denver Broncos. So when you look at all these different scenarios, this was perfect, you know, and I'm glad the Broncos were able to get it right at that $49 million a year number where it didn't reset the market and you didn't wait. But I knew that this was coming. I watched Russell Wilson's agent walk around UC Health Training Facility during training camp like he owned the place. He was up and down and all around that building. So you kind of knew that this was coming sooner or later.
He was front and center there too when the new owners came in to town. He was out there for all the photo ops. I mean, you know what? Russell Wilson's team he has around him is pretty good. I mean, he's got some guys that really know how to do their jobs, and they got Russell Wilson's back, which is it's interesting to see because especially here in Denver, we've never really seen that before.
No, yeah, his agent Mark Rogers is one of the best in the game. You know, just an absolute pit bull when it comes to it, and is going to fight for his clients. And when you look at a deal like this, you know, the thing that appeals to me the most. It's not a fully guaranteed contract. We all just watched what Cleveland did with Deshaun Watson this past offseason. We all saw what Kirk Cousins was able to get when he first got to Minnesota, that fully guaranteed contract. So it looked like it was starting to trend in that direction where I feel like this is a very smart deal where it gives Russell Wilson the surety, but it's a very team-friendly deal because it's not fully guaranteed. Where we know Russ has 2 more years on his contract. Yep. That pre-existing contract, then that new Bronco contract kicks in, but the first 3 years are basically guaranteed. So the Broncos want to get up from underneath that come year 4 or year 5, they're able to do that. With a running quarterback, I think that's always very important. Russell's not Lamar's age. He's not Kyler Murray's age. He's not Deshaun Watson's age. He is 33 years old. The Broncos have to be able to protect him. But they also, with this deal, they protected their self as well. And that's what I love about it the most.
The funny thing is that everyone thought the Deshaun Watson contract was going to reset the market with fully guaranteed money. And let's be honest, like the Cleveland Browns, man, for some reason they were desperate, even though they had Baker, who was like, okay, if you don't like Baker, fine. But he was a middle of the road NFL quarterback. There was no reason the Cleveland Browns had to go out and do what they did with Deshaun Watson, and the NFL the owners and the GMs just never seem to buy into that.
Yeah, well, they haven't been able to do it. How many times has Cleveland drafted a quarterback in the first round to try to, say, hey, this is our guy. This is our guy that's going to change the franchise. We've seen it many, many times over, and it hasn't lasted. They finally were able to get a middle of the road guy in Baker Mayfield, but Baker's not going to lead the league in passing yards like a Deshaun Watson. He's not going to be able to do things special with his legs like a Deshaun Watson. And when you're a desperate team like the Cleveland Browns now to get a tier 1 quarterback, because just like it or not, I hate what Deshaun Watson does off the field. I hate what he stands for. But when he does step on the field and he's playing football, he's a tier 1 quarterback. So if you could trade for a guy like that, and you're Cleveland, you have to be desperate. You have to give up what you give up to trade for him. You have to now make that contract work, because these quarterbacks have all the power in the National Football League. And Deshaun Watson could have been like, oh, Cleveland, the mistake on the lake, I'm not touching that team with a 10-foot pole, and not have got traded there.
You did bring up Kirk Cousins, and I'm glad you did that, because when Kirk Cousins signed, it was fully guaranteed. People were freaking out, and George Payton was there and got to watch that whole thing. So you did talk about the numbers early. Aaron Rodgers is at just a little bit over 50. Russell Wilson's coming in at that 49. Let's scroll down to all the way down here to number 10. Kirk Cousins is at $35 million a year, sitting 10th. And that's a good deal for the Minnesota Vikings. So George Payton, he's seen this play out before, and it was a great move.
Yeah, absolutely. He saw what he did with Kirk, and Kirk's nowhere near the quarterback or of the caliber of a guy like Russell Wilson, in my opinion. Nothing against Kirk. I think Kirk's a great functioning quarterback in the National Football League, but at times things go haywire, and he's not going to make anything happen with his legs, right? He'd rather take a self-sack in a situation like that. So just looking at the parameters of that deal, that's a good, fair deal. And Kirk's a couple years into it. So now he's the 10th highest paid quarterback, right? We just watched an offseason where 4 guys just re-elevated themselves and jumped him. So just kind of looking at it all, the best thing about this deal is you get your quarterback locked up. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson, because I think Lamar Jackson's contract would have been comparable to Russell Wilson's contract, just like I think Kyler Murray's contract is comparable to Russell Wilson's contract, where you got guys that can make things happen with their legs, they make things happen with their arm, but, probably are not going to reset the market. With Baltimore right now, with Lamar cutting off talks, it's probably going to end up resetting the market. Baltimore doesn't want to get the free agency. It's hard to go get one of those quarterbacks. And if he wins, you're going to be picking late in that first round. So he's probably going to end up resetting the market. And I love the fact that George Payton was proactive, didn't wait for that to happen, where now if Lamar Jackson had been the guy to reset the market, I'm anticipating Russell Wilson and his agent, Mark Rodgers, would have been banging on the table saying, hey, we're better than that. We got to get around the same money, or we're going to have to jump Aaron Rodgers. Right now, this contract is justifiable because Aaron Rodgers just won the league MVP the last 2 years in a row.
Last thing for you while we're on this, everyone in Broncos country, I'll say 90%, there are some naysayers, and that's what I want to talk about next. Russell Wilson, we have him locked up for the next 7 years. Great for the Denver Broncos. We had some people talking about that he's on the way out. And I just wanted to let's rehash some Russell Wilson numbers from last year. So Russell Wilson missed 2 games last year, and then he came back with that messed up finger, played 2 more, didn't do too great. But last year, Russell Wilson's QBR was a 54, but he had 25 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And I would say last year probably was one of the better years for the Denver Broncos at the quarterback position with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater had a 47.4 QBR. I mean, Russell Wilson for the last 3 years has thrown 31 touchdown passes, 40 touchdown passes, 25 last year with the couple of games missed. The year before that, 35, 34. Do you think there's any chance that Russell Wilson's not going to go out there this year and have a good season?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, Chris, The magic number is 34. You know,
Right.
it's got to be higher than 34 because you have better weapons than you've ever had in Seattle. I know Seattle had their top 1, 2, right? They had Lockett and they had DK Metcalf. But who else? Tell me who the number 3 wide receiver it was on that football team. Oh, you
Right.
can't tell me who it is. Tell me who the number 4 is. Oh, you can't tell me who it is. Tell me who the tight end has been. Oh, it's been tight end by committee ever since
Mhm.
Jimmy Graham has left. Right now, just there's better athletes here for the Broncos. The wide receiver room was the deepest room for the Broncos in training camp, hence why they were able to make some moves and bring some guys back. But when you start looking at that and just a deep room with better talent, those touchdowns still should be thrown. And
Right.
Russell Wilson, the thing that he doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for is those low amount of interceptions that he throws as well. So the Broncos this year, Russell Wilson at the quarterback position, I think it's 34 touchdowns, especially if he plays 17 games. It's at least 34 touchdowns, or it's a bust.
Right.
And I think that he's going to obtain that easily.
Well, good stuff, Big O. You can follow Orlando on Twitter or Instagram, Franklin74. I'm at Chris Braden Live. Any parting shots you have for me?
No. The team is done. Russell's done, and now it's time to play football, right? These are good. It's good to be in Bronco country right now. You know that you have the quarterback. You know that it's locked up. And now, if you're George Paton, you get to start focusing on guys like Dalton Risner. You get to start focus on now Bradley Chubb, because you don't want Bradley Chubb to play 17 games and have double-digit sacks and turn that thing into a bidding war. So I'm happy that this behind the scenes they have been as proactive as possible, and they wrapped this deal up this morning.
The interesting thing is it seems like everything, it could have been super chaotic. New ownership, new quarterback, new head coach, redoing a big contract for the Denver Broncos. Doesn't it seem like everything's kind of like just under control and kind of smooth down there?
Yeah, it seems like this ownership and alongside George Paton, they're ahead of the game for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things right after the Broncos had their 53-man roster on Tuesday at 2 p.m. was George Paton said, they wrote up 8,000 reports. These guys are hard at work behind the scenes and making sure that they're taking care of business. And with new ownership, what do you get when you get an owner that has owned all these Walmarts, that is the most wealthiest owner by far in the National Football League?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get a person that knows how to micromanage things, but
Sure.
also knows how to hire people and put them in the place for them to do their job. So right now, what it seems like to me, as crazy as it sounds, because we're talking about the Denver Broncos and there's only 32 professional teams, but the last 6 years, the Broncos weren't being micromanaged the right way, where
Right.
there were people stepping on people's toes and guys weren't doing just their job. Right now, the right people are in place and they're allowing these guys to do their jobs. And that's why there's so much more control and there's so much ahead of things.
Good stuff, Big O. We'll be back next week with our regular podcast. We had to come on quick. Big news for the Denver Broncos. We've had 6+ years of kind of suffering, and now we can look forward to, we got a field general for 7 years. It's going to be awesome. So thanks, Big O.
All right, Chris. Thanks. Have a great weekend, buddy.